Welcome to Franchise Killer, a podcast where we pick movie franchises or wannabe franchises, review them film by film, and see where things went wrong or right, etc.
Oh, why?
That's exactly what I was going to do.
we all know.
Yeah, that's Hedwig, by the way.
Good job.
Now I have to change who I'm going to be.
I'm Reese. Across from me we have
David.
to his left,
Irina.
to my right,
Patricia.
You gotta jut that throat out a little bit more.
jut that throat. Well, that's not for audio though. You can't.
Yeah.
I guess
You
Well,
can't
there's a
do
little
that
bit of
for
audio.
also known as
Noah.
and the man who doesn't like to be lied to, etc.
AJ.
He's like, is that it?
Yeah, that was it. I didn't have much for this one. The movie, of course, let's get right into it. Split. Movie that came out in 2016. 16 years after Unbreakable, but that's not relevant, right? That's just another random Shyamalan movie. We don't know.
Classic Shyamalan.
Is the continuity 16 years after?
That's something I don't know, but I will say it probably because Bruce Willis, spoiler, at the end of this movie is, in fact, 16 years older.
Yeah.
Okay, so probably.
Well, also,
Probably has to be.
the setting of this movie, I'm pretty sure at the time was just current day.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
that would make sense.
Yeah. The movie is directed once again by M. Night Shyamalan. This is the second Shyamalan movie we're covering in this miniseries and the second overall for the podcast in his little trilogy of films, the East Rail something
177.
trilogy. Shyamalan, as we know, we'll go over his filmography again here. He started directing with Praying with Anger, a very bad movie that you can watch on YouTube if you'd like for free. Then followed that up with Wide Awake. This was before he developed his signature style. Then what most people regard as like the first true Shyamalan movie, like his big coming out party as this auteur. We have The Sixth Sense.
Wait. Oh, never mind. I was thinking they were reversed.
No. Sixth Sense, Signs, Unbreakable, relevant to our discussion with this movie. Then The Village, Lady in the Water, The Happening, The Last Airbender, After Earth, The Visit, Glass, Old, and the upcoming Knock at the Cabin. So we've said it before, but a director who has a very spotty career of very highs and very lows. Like when I was watching this, regardless of your thoughts on it, I could not believe that this was the same director that did The Last Airbender. Like it's just like the quality levels are so staggeringly different. The performances, like the way people act, is so staggeringly different. It's just weird. It's weird. Like clearly, this is more what we want from our Shyamalan, I'll assume, right? over the Last Airbenders.
Oh, yeah.
The movie stars James McAvoy, Anya Taylor-Joy, Betty Buckley, Haley Lou Richardson, Jessica Sula, and Bruce Willis. And it's written by, once again, M. Night Shyamalan.
I like how we put Bruce Willis in that cast list, like as if he was the third cast.
I gave him like the "and" that they do at the credits, where it's like,
yeah.
and also
featuring so-and-so.
It's one of those things that I probably should have included other people before him, like, but I decided, you know what, his
name's bigger.
His name's big, and he has one of the biggest moments in this movie, maybe the biggest.
How
moment.
much do you get paid to sit there and say one line?
I looked it up. Couldn't
Probably
find
a lot.
it.
Oh, okay.
Actually, probably not a
undisclosed.
lot, because this movie is not budgeted very high at all. So
It could have been one of those things where he's like, yeah, sure, I'll show up if you like pay for my plane flight or something.
And if you look at Bruce Willis's career at this point, he was pretty much exclusively in direct-to-DVD movies. So I imagine Shyamalan called him up, hey, you want to be in a movie that people will actually see in the theater? And I'll give you like
That's such a roast.
and
That's one way to start the proposition.
yeah, and I'll give you like a decent chunk of change, but not something that you'll be able to buy a new mansion with. And he was probably like, sure. Like that's how I think that happened. Like, and you'll be here for a day. You get to sit in a chair and just say a couple lines. I think they got him
but
pretty
that would
cheap.
also have to be followed up with the conversation, I'm planning a third film and you will have to be in it.
Yeah.
Like, if you do this.
Yeah, like this could reset your career.
Yeah.
And
You know they sat down for dinner.
Yeah.
now we do know that Bruce Willis is suffering from some, I guess, he has kind of some deteriorating illness of the mind. I don't know specifically what it is, but
I didn't know that.
Yeah, it's let's see, aphasia.
Yeah, aphasia. Yeah, that was it.
I thought
It's aphasia.
I thought it was going to be a longer thing. It's just called aphasia.
So I did learn that that's why he was in all of these kind of direct-to-DVD movies recently, and in this movie, unfortunately, he's suffering from that illness, and it's kind of been a struggle for him to perform. So just keep that in mind as we go forward in this movie and in the upcoming Glass, which I think when you watch Glass, it makes a lot of sense that he may have been, I don't know, suffering from something. With that said, for those that are new to this show, on this podcast, we first go over our thoughts on the film before revisiting it for the episode. Then we dive into the story, break it down bit by bit, and talk about the more significant moments. Then towards the end of the show, we give our brief reviews and numbered scores, along with an analysis on the health of the franchise and whether or not this film hurt it. So, David, I'm going to come to you once again, since this is your mini-series, and ask you, had you seen Split before your prep for this episode?
Sure have. I saw it in theaters back when it came out. I think it was like within the first week. Irina was like, hey, this new movie Split's out with McAvoy. Let's go check it out. And I was like, sure.
And it's a Shyamalan movie, so
I don't even know if I knew it was Shyamalan. Like the moment.
Sure, Irina did.
I think we knew at the time.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. I couldn't remember.
AJ, how about you?
Yeah, I mean, no, I had not seen this before. It's not really my genre that I typically tend towards, I guess. But, I mean, I guess I knew it by reputation of these people living this kind of confined space together and, I don't know, not getting along, I guess. This childlike kind of guy and, this, I don't know, art curator, artist, whatever. What? But, I don't know, I just don't see Vince Vaughn and lost her name.
What? Oh,
Dodgeball?
No.
I'm trying to think.
Jennifer Aniston.
The breakup?
Yeah, the breakup.
Like
Split.
I was trying to rhyme something with Split and, yeah. Wow. The breakup. Not a terrible movie. Come on the kick drum. That's a funny moment in that movie. But not the movie we watched for this episode. How about Split? Had you seen Split before, AJ?
Oh, no. No, I had not either. I did remember seeing the trailers for it and wanting to see it, not knowing that it was part of a franchise, but I never ended up seeing it until recently for this episode.
Oh, so this was the first time for you.
Yep.
Oh, so that the twist was probably a little less impactful, I would imagine.
I guess.
All right. Irina.
What twist?
Oh, did you not? Okay, the twist is that it is part of the Unbreakable franchise.
He's like, wait a minute, there's a twist.
Yeah, I guess I didn't know that was supposed to be a surprise.
Ooh, this is interesting because going into this movie, there were no signs of Split being a sequel to Unbreakable. It was just like, this is the next Shyamalan thing. Even so far as the press screeners for critics did not have the tag at the end that shows Bruce Willis in the bar. Like, they left it out for critics as well.
Oh, really?
It was available opening day for everyone. They got that end credits thing where it was like, oh, we're in the Unbreakable universe. So the whole movie plays out. Just everyone thinks it's just this.
I love to imagine.
Oh, that's kind of cool.
The critics watching the movie like, no, I like it, you know? And then they hear about it after the fact. They're like, wait, Bruce Willis? What? I didn't. Why didn't you put it on our release?
I'm entitled.
So you wouldn't ruin
bad review.
So you wouldn't ruin it for everyone.
Yeah. It was such a great example of you always expect a twist from Shyamalan, and what he's in this case. I'm not saying he's always genius, but in this case, he was genius in that he made you think the twist was that the fact that this guy can actually will himself into having powers because it's like this disability. That was the twist. Like, oh, he can actually be like more enhanced.
Oh, it's real, not just his imagination.
Yeah, and then everyone's like, oh, that's the Shyamalan twist. I guess that's pretty okay.
Yeah.
Well, but there's also a lot of stuff in the movie that once you retroactively know that it's in the same universe, there's subtle clues throughout the entire movie that reference Unbreakable.
Yeah, it's crazy. Irina, how about you? Had you seen this movie before?
Yeah.
Obviously with David's story.
Yeah, David was mentioning it. Yeah, I knew it was Shyamalan, and I remember seeing trailers for it and getting excited because I'm pretty sure the Witch came out before this, right?
The
Do you
Witch?
remember?
I don't.
Because that was,
yes,
I think that was
so.
Anya Taylor-Joy's first role.
I'm pretty sure The Witch was 2014 or 2015, and this was 2016.
Yeah.
So yeah.
So I remembered seeing her in this trailer and knowing she was a good actress, and then James McAvoy, who at the time I had only really seen him in Narnia and
Wanted.
No, I hadn't seen that one.
Oh, you didn't see Wanted?
I had seen Narnia and
X-Men.
Atonement.
X-Men. Yeah, I had seen Atonement. But I had also seen, gosh, what's that one with Christina Ricci?
Now you've lost me. I don't
Christina
know.
Ricci, she has like a pig nose and
Charlotte? Penelope.
Penelope. That's
Whatever.
it.
I was
'Cause
thinking
our
Charlotte's Web.
our little sister really liked that movie. And so up until this point, I had only really seen him as, it seemed like movies were trying to play him as the pretty boy or the nice guy, and then seeing him as the antagonist in a movie, I was intrigued. So, we went to go see it.
Although I will also elaborate more that I had not seen Unbreakable at this point. When I
Interesting.
saw,
So you saw
that's
Split
right.
first.
You saw Split before
and we
Unbreakable.
that's fine. They're
It
not
was
so
fine.
connected that you have to see one, but
No, but it makes the thing at the end.
well,
way
exactly.
better.
So what happened was we got to that point, and I was like, we were walking. I was like, why was Bruce Willis in this movie? Like, what was that? And Irina was like, David, oh my God, David,
Yeah.
you don't understand. And she's like, you never seen Unbreakable?
I remember,
And then I watched Unbreakable that weekend.
sitting in our seats, and then that scene came up, and the music started before you see Bruce Willis. And I'm like, wait a minute. And then, like, the lady moves away, and there's Bruce Willis, and, like, honestly, goosebumps, like, when I saw that. And I turned to David, like, with this expression of,
This
like,
seemed
oh
mean.
my God, I can't believe they did that. And he's
My
like, what are
dumb
you,
face,
what's
just
going
like,
on? And I was like, have you seen Unbreakable? He's like, no. And I'm like, oh my God, you need to
That's
see
kind
it.
of on you, Irina. if I'm being perfectly honest.
No, but
She showed me right after.
I didn't know that it was going to have that. If I knew, I would have shown him first.
Okay, that's so true. Yeah, you're right. It's
Yeah,
not on you. I take it back.
It's not my fault.
Yeah.
I didn't know.
Why didn't you show me the movie knowing?
No, Noah, how about you? Had you seen Split before you prepped for this episode?
Yeah. I saw it with Jessie, my girlfriend, and the cool thing about this, in regards to the little twist, is that I didn't even know this was a M. Night Shyamalan movie.
Oh, wow.
I was just watching it based off the trailers, and I was like, oh, this seems interesting. Let's go to Alamo, get some good food, and
Enjoy a cool
watch
movie.
it. Watch kind of a horror
Thriller, yeah.
esque movie. And then that happened, and I was like, oh.
Yep.
And I was like, have you seen Unbreakable? And she's like, no. And so it was a very similar,
Yep.
very similar reaction.
Did you
and I was
show her Unbreakable?
like, no.
Oh,
Yeah. She didn't seem terribly interested.
that's fair.
Yeah, so Noah, I think
but-
you, me, and Irina had the best experience with
Yeah.
the...
Yeah.
Well, I
Well,
think
it's like
the twist
the
hit the hardest.
ideal
Yeah.
experience that he would have wanted.
Yeah.
Is someone having seen Unbreakable, watching this, having no
Understanding.
idea, and then getting that,
Yeah.
adrenaline shot at the end.
I remember it like I don't remember the exact conversation, but I remember after that I was going around to you guys saying, have y'all seen Split yet?
yeah.
Yeah.
And I was like, I can't say what the spoiler is. All I can say is just watch it.
Yeah.
I just love that part where it's transitioning over into showing Bruce Wilson like. Doom, tuk, tuk, doom,
Oh, yeah, I was just going to
Yeah.
reference, once that beat kicks in, it's like,
Yeah.
oh, okay. Like that. The
Street walking.
Meanwhile, I'm like, that's a dated song.
Yeah. As for my part, I definitely saw this in theaters. I don't know if I saw it opening weekend, but I saw it in theaters for sure. And I don't think I was spoiled on what was going to happen. I remember I was on Twitter at the time, which now is, it was always a cesspool, but now it's like a raging bonfire of craziness.
Yeah.
But there's all this buzz about go see Split.
Yeah.
Like don't and for for God's sake, don't get spoiled. Like it's
Yeah.
like there was a movie this year that came out that had similar like, oh, just go see it, and that was Barbarian, but split.
Oh, yeah.
Like you benefit more from not knowing
Yeah.
what is going to happen in this movie, and I would agree.
It's
like
true.
that, and for movies like that, I'm like, okay, I will shut off. I do not want to be spoiled. I don't mind being spoiled on a latest Marvel movie. Like, okay, what's the stinger? I don't care anymore. It's never like that world changing anymore. So I'm like, just tell me what happens, and then I'll go watch it. But yeah, in this movie's case, I was like, all right, I'm gonna shut off all the technology, go watch this movie, and
Right.
yeah, saw it in theaters. I still can't remember how close to release I actually saw it though. So
Yeah.
with that said, are y'all ready to get into this movie?
Yeah.
David, you want to take it away with that story?
Hey, pardon me, sir. I think you have the wrong car.
You've emailed for an appointment 2 days in a row.
Tell me what's going on.
I've never seen a case like this before. 23 identities live in Kevin's body. Did something happen?
There's a flower on the pillows, a flower in the bathroom. Like, we're important. Who is that?
Maybe she can help us.
We're here! We're in here!
Don't worry. He knows what you're here for. He's not allowed to touch you. He knows that.
My name's Hedwig. I have red socks.
How old are you?
9.
The human brain is the most complex object in the universe.
The only way we're getting out of here is if one of them decides to let us out.
Aren't you the clever one?
Hedwig, could you help us?
Okay. I have a window in my room.
Maybe you could show us.
Oh, that's here. Now it's closed. Now it's open. Did you think it was a real window? So you could leave?
An individual with multiple personalities can change their body.
Kevin Wendell Crumb, a man struggling with dissociative identity disorder, or DID, rooted in his history of childhood abuse and abandonment, has been managing living with his 23 distinct personalities well for several years with help from his therapist, Dr. Karen Fletcher. The most dominant of the desirable alters, Barry, has been in control of deciding which personalities get to control Kevin's body. And lately, he has not allowed Dennis or Patricia to have a turn due to the former's tendency to harass young girls and the latter's belief in a mysterious entity called the Beast, who plans to rid the world of the impure. That is, those who have not suffered. Dr. Fletcher is concerned when she realizes that Dennis has been impersonating Barry during their sessions after questioning him about an incident wherein Dennis had been left disturbed when 2 teenage girls had placed his hands on their breasts while drunk. Very important. Just outside Philadelphia, Dennis kidnaps 3 girls, Claire, Casey, and Marcia, when they are waiting in the car of Claire's father to get driven home from a birthday party. He imprisons the girls in a secret underground lair beneath the Philadelphia Zoo, where they meet Patricia, who protects the girls from Dennis to save them for the Beast, and a 9-year-old boy named Hedwig, revealed to be the true dominant alter, whom Patricia and Dennis are manipulating to shut out the other alters. I'm just saying, every time I think it's stopping, they're like, let's just string this sentence farther. All right. The girls try to escape by going through the vents, manipulating Kevin's alters, and communicating with each other individually via walkie-talkie, but all of their attempts end in failure. Dr. Fletcher goes to the zoo to talk to Dennis when he claims to have made contact with the Beast. In reality, a yet-to-manifest 24th personality, but she discovers Claire, so Dennis incapacitates the doctor and locks her up. Then he goes to the train station and boards an empty train car, where the Beast takes over. The Beast, who displays enhanced strength and animalistic tendencies, returns to his lair, thanks Dr. Fletcher for her help, and crushes her to death. He savagely feeds upon and kills Claire and Marcia before approaching Casey, but she calls out Kevin's full name, which brings forth his original personality. Upon learning of the situation and realizing that he has not been in control of his own body for 2 years, The horrified Kevin begs Casey to kill him with a shotgun that he has hidden. This prompts all 24 personalities to fight for control, with Patricia the victor. She tells Casey that Kevin has been made to sleep far away and will not be awoken even if his name was called. While Patricia returns control to the beast, Casey retrieves the shotgun in a box of cartridges and escapes into a tunnel. She manages to shoot the beast twice before running out of ammo, but he only sustains minor wounds. He moves closer to murdering her, but stops when he sees scars across her abdomen, which are related to her having been abused by her uncle and legal guardian, John, both before and after her father's death. Because she is pure, the beast spares Casey's life, and she is rescued the next morning by the police. In another hideout, Dennis, Patricia, and Hedwig discuss the power of the beast and their plans to change the world. At the Silk City Diner, several patrons watch a news report on the beast's crimes, with the correspondent mentioning that his numerous altars have earned him the nickname the Horde. A waitress notes the similarity to a criminal in a wheelchair who was incarcerated 15 years ago, who was also given a nickname. As she tries to remember it, the man sitting next to her replies, "Well, that was Mr. Glass."
But Split, here we are, the long-awaited sequel to Unbreakable that we never knew that we wanted. The movie starts on Anya Taylor-Joy. She is at I think it's some sort of party with her art class, right?
It's a birthday party for one of the girls that invited
she was a
everyone
pity
in the
invite.
art
Yeah.
class.
Yeah, she's real quiet looking out the window, and the other two are other two girls who kind of hosted the party, or at least the blonde girl who hosted it with her dad, are like, we can't leave her. So in another subversion that I like that M. Night does in this movie is you would think, like, oh, they eventually end up leaving her and she gets kidnapped.
Yeah.
Right.
But no, you're actually kind of lulled into this safe space as the whole group walks out to the car, and then something happens.
Yep.
What did y'all think about the opening, like, I guess, the kidnapping of these three girls, and what do you think happened to the father? Because I'm like, did he get tossed in the back trunk? Like, what?
No, he
So
left them there.
there was a news report in the movie where it talks about how I think the father's fine, but he was knocked out. Like he had used chloroform on him or something, and so he's still okay. I don't think he was murdered or anything.
I think there was a slight missed opportunity to, when Wendell Crumb is backing the car out, to hear like a thunk thunk, like a rolling over or something.
Maybe in your movie.
Actually, it was Dennis driving. Okay.
I know you're joking, but I think
I'm actually not. I think that would have been effective.
Okay. Well, I think it would be counterintuitive to the point of DID.
I agree. Well, there's a couple points in this movie that are still counter to the point of DID.
Yeah.
But
okay, yeah, especially like the superpower.
But I
There's a
think
couple
I know
things,
what
What
where
I'm-
you're going though. Go
Yeah,
ahead.
what I'm getting at is that this would build an association with people with DID. That would be really negative.
directly
let's
being
just
murdered.
go ahead and
Yeah.
say now that it wasn't well received by the DID community.
Yeah, it already wasn't. I can imagine. But that would make it, even worse. They're not trying to portray him as exactly a bad guy here. However, he is the antagonist.
Yes.
I could be wrong, but I don't think this is actually a fully existing condition amongst a lot of people.
It is.
It is.
DID?
But what he's doing here is like a fantastical.
Oh, it is.
Oh yeah,
yeah.
definitely.
Bestiality?
But there are people that do have
Something
DID.
similar.
Identity
And they
disorders,
do
yeah.
have different sort of personalities. Maybe not exactly like this.
I watched a
but-
very long, it was like a 45-minute video of therapists breaking down DID and how this movie gets some things right, very, very, very minimal, but they're trying to portray it as kind of real until Shyamalan decides he doesn't want it to be real, in which case I think suspending disbelief and being able to separate yourself from the art, like you can say, look, this is somebody's art form. You can take it for what it is.
I think the actual interesting topic about this movie is the time it was released. I think we were just starting to openly talk about personality disorders or just mental disorders in general. Like now it's kind of commonplace for people to talk about like, oh yeah, this is a mental disorder this person has, or I have, or I'm dealing with depression or PTSD. And now it's like, it's more acceptable to talk about it these days. Whereas at the time, it was still something people would sort of sweep under the rug or just not talk about. Like maybe they have a family member that they just don't mention to people because it's either embarrassing, people won't understand, or it's scary. And so the time of this movie coming out, it felt like it almost felt like a regression for some people where they were making headway in identity disorders being, oh, it's normal, it's fine, like nobody's threatening or really violent. It's just this is something that they deal with. But with this movie, they felt like it was kind of casting a dark shadow on personality disorders. So that's why there was such a huge uprising about it.
Like, oh, people with DID are dangerous.
Yeah.
Well, I guess I took it maybe because I didn't see it contemporaneously or when it came out, but, I felt like it kind of established early on. It wasn't, directly saying it, but there were clues, especially in the psychotherapy sessions and stuff, that this was kind of an alternate reality where things weren't really true to
Oh, definitely.
For sure.
To form anyway.
Yeah.
So it was, I don't know, I feel like it was clear enough that it was a stylistic approach or portrayal.
Yeah. I agree.
And I was watching special features to this, and I don't think the aim of Shyamalan was to make you concerned about people with a condition like this.
Not at all.
He the way he looked at it was, there were real life cases of someone having two different personalities.
Or 23. He found one specific person that had
it's based off that one guy who did some not great things. But he was fascinated by the idea that you could have one personality that is really capable of doing one thing, but not the other. And then the other personality was capable of doing that thing that the other was not capable of doing.
Yeah.
And he wanted to see, like, what if one of those personalities believed in the supernatural, like fully believed in it, and just made it happen.
It kind of goes back to, we had a little bit of discussion during like Gattaca and stuff about transhumanism, and this is kind of like the supernatural approach to that, where you have transhumanism within one physical body, but with different personas. With different, one is diabetic, needs insulin, the other one don't.
Yeah.
It's just kind of pushing the envelope in that theory.
Yeah.
But in the concept, the twist of it's all in one person or one body.
Yeah. So I think, to sum up, I think Shyamalan, whether you're, I think it's your right to be offended by it if it strikes a nerve with you. But I just don't think his intention was to...
It wasn't malicious.
Oh, yeah.
Well, I think from my perspective now, it's easier to digest for most people because I think more people are aware and informed of what these issues are, Whereas before, they may not have really encountered anyone with DID. And so seeing this as your only example might cause people to fear it a little bit.
Yeah.
And I think that's what was going on, was because that conversation hadn't really started in public fully.
Yeah.
Like it was only people that were associated with it that really understood what was going on.
What was interesting to me was a lot of and I don't know how deep
we're not even into
I know.
McAvoy.
I'm saying, like, we don't want to drag on the science, but
we're just talking about the obvious issues that this kind of stirred up.
It's a big part of the plot is the DID, so I think it's important to discuss.
Yeah, I just thought it would come up in the middle.
But here we are.
Yep, here we are.
But I also want to give credit to where some of the information I was getting was from Cinema Therapy on YouTube, a really good channel. But they were also breaking down how after this, it kind of inspired other sort of movie plots that dove more into DID stuff, and one of which was Moon Knight, which they said did a really good job of actually interpreting DID. And also, I guess, Gollum from Lord of the Rings is another character that has a type of DID.
Is that not more schizophrenia?
No.
Just like talking to yourself?
It's two separate personalities in one body.
He's not talking to himself he's talking to his.
Also, for everyone out there,
it's Smeagol versus Gollum.
Yeah,
None
two
of-
personalities.
Two steps
None of
back
us
on the
have-
offending people.
yeah, none of us have
I'm
any
joking.
degrees or anything on psychology or
Oh, I do.
any of that.
I do
So
actually. So
It's
Dang it.
I do, in that, with all that being said, I do think that, McAvoy's performance is just stellar in,
oh
Oh,
yeah,
in this
yeah.
regard, and this ability to bring these very different personalities and identities into one where they're not caricatures. They're very organic. They're
Right.
very, they feel like real individual people, all from one actor. And
Yeah.
I think that's this really spoke to me on an art performance level.
yeah.
It just the whole thespian style acting. I really find it.
the movie completely falls
Commendable,
apart if
yeah.
he's not in it.
Oh
Yeah.
yeah,
And
yeah.
I will tell you this: the original casting was going to be Joaquin Phoenix in his role,
Huh.
but due to scheduling conflicts, that ended up not happening.
He's actually another person I could see pulling it off.
I think
but
he could as well, but that would be a very different movie. And
It would be very different.
as dark as this movie was.
It would be darker.
It would be darker.
Yeah,
It'd
I
somehow
know.
be darker.
Are you saying
Yeah.
Walking Phoenix brings darker energy?
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
for sure.
I mean,
Did you see Joker?
Yeah, I was
Yeah.
gonna
No,
say
that's
you,
what I
you
was
watched
thinking.
that, right?
Joker,
Yeah, yeah.
and even if you think of Gladiator,
Yeah.
like his role as
Ooh, yes.
him
Yeah.
is like it played by anyone else, it would have been like, yeah, he's evil. But for some reason, Joaquin Phoenix just has this ability to really pull this dark energy
Yeah.
into his characters.
So
Yeah.
so let's get into the meat of this. He kidnaps the three girls. I do have one pet peeve, and it is with Anya Taylor-Joy's character, her decisions in this movie.
Yep.
I think her performance is really great, amazing across the board. However, it is a personal pet peeve of mine when a character just sits there and either doesn't say anything or doesn't have agency or action.
Right.
And her I couldn't help but she's frozen in the side passenger seat of the car for 5 minutes, just looking at James McAvoy's character. Sorry, Wendell Crumb's character. And I know you're frozen in fear. You don't know what to do. You're uncertain about what's going to happen.
Well, I think it ties into some of the psychology of her character that we get to know later.
Yeah. She's experienced her own trauma, and there's reasoning for the way she responds.
It's kind of like a
Yeah.
shutting
Does not-
down mechanism.
Yeah, but then fast forwarding to in the... No, y'all are totally right. It's just like a personal
Yeah,
you could have gotten out of
you
there.
just get frustrated.
It's, I know you're
if they
talking
didn't
it's the
have
car
that
scene.
development,
Yeah.
and that's another strength of this movie is, she could easily be this damsel in distress or just flat two-dimensional cardboard,
Yeah.
girl sacrificial lamb kind of character, but she has her own strength and challenges and trauma and background that she takes to this experience and interacts with the other characters.
Right.
And it makes much more sense in hindsight once that character is revealed more, like what she's been through.
Right.
But I'm also talking about a scene where the three girls are locked up in the cell, and the ringleader girl, the blonde-haired, what's her name? I don't know the other girls' names. I only know her. But she says something like, the only thing we can do right now is bum rush this guy, all three of us, when he comes in. And in my head, I'm like, that's actually probably your best option.
Yeah.
In my head. But when she calls her an idiot or she says something to her, I'm like, don't know. That's not a bad
So,
idea for once.
it is true. And I think her character is one where you have to do a little more thinking from her perspective and her
she's
experiences.
No, you're right. But that's what I'm trying to say, though. 'Cause
Yeah.
in hindsight, it makes more sense. She's actually dealt with real life predators.
She has, and then you add the fact that maybe her home life is something she still considers worse than this.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
the situation she's in, she's seen so far that this guy is holding off on touching them or doing anything with them. So she's like, okay, we at least have some time. He has some kind of control over his instincts.
Yeah.
Whereas the person she lives with at home does not.
Speaking of this, is there a director whose films feel R-rated but somehow aren't more than M. Night Shyamalan?
Yeah, it's
Yeah, I
like
can see
he
that.
never quite shows anything, but the implications are bad enough.
This movie
really
has
skirts
some.
the line.
This movie has some really dark themes that I'm like, how is it? You look at the back case of the Blu-ray and like PG-13, like that shows you that our rating system is just stupid. It's just
like you-
stupid.
Like
it's-
you really don't want to show The Last Airbender to your kids.
Like I don't know. Yeah, exactly. But I don't think a 13-year-old should see this movie.
Yeah.
Well,
Like,
and
it's-
there's also like not nudity, but like knowing when he has them like take their clothes off. I'm like, I don't feel comfortable
Yeah.
watching high schoolers do this. And then he does it in I would say a tasteful way where it's not like
he doesn't.
it's not dwelling on it.
But he's the master of imply but don't show.
Right.
Yeah.
Like he'll do just enough to avoid that, to skirt the R rating, but you know exactly
Right.
where all of these things are going,
Well, it's
and your
like-
mind makes up a bigger horror
Yeah, it
movie.
jumps.
than
This kind of thing is the exact kind of filming that I want to throw in the face of people who are like, yeah, but you need sensationalized stuff for people to really get the point. I'm like, no, you don't. People fill in the gaps for themselves. You don't need to show me really explicit stuff because that's just low-hanging fruit. Like it's
dialogue
yeah.
exposition does not need to exist,
Exactly.
or not dialogue, but like
not trusting that the
you
audience
know,
is smart enough to understand in between.
yeah,
those.
like you'll have a character that just comes into the fray and is like, by the way, back in 1847, my brethren, they did this, that, and the other thing. And it's like, okay, you
Didn't
could have
need it.
just like shown us this in some way.
It makes me think of when I'm working on work projects and I'll do a very tasteful job with like layout and text and getting everything that makes sense. And then all the executives are like, not enough information. The people aren't going to understand that. I'm like, yes, they will.
They can read between the lines.
There's going to be someone reading it. You're not giving your audience credit. Like that's and it's same
Yeah,
thing
just
with
trust
directors.
the audience.
Yep.
This is a movie that I feel like trusts the audience.
Yes.
Gives you just enough. There is not a lot of exposition. There is exposition here and there, but I feel like most of it's necessary exposition. I do get the only times when I start to feel this movie getting into or falling into the mold of like you're just spell it out versus showing is when he's talking to his therapist.
Right.
When Wendell Crumb, like a lot of that seems a little exposition heavy. Like that stuff interested me less until the end when she actually becomes more of an interesting part of it. But when they're going into the DID stuff and it almost feels like spoon feedy where it's like, here's what's happening.
The
Like,
one thing I did like about those scenes, though, is watching her act around him, where she would start to realize, like, okay, I think this is Dennis, but I'm going to treat it like he fooled me just to, get him to open up a little more.
So Betty Buckley, that's the actress who plays.
She's so good.
Like at first, when their
That
first
is really
scene
good.
together was for me like I don't know.
Yeah.
But she starts to really kind of
I
get
like her
better
a
as the
lot.
movie goes
Yeah.
along. Like
I actually thought that those scenes are pretty interesting. Even if there is some exposition, the way that they did it was tasteful in that she's like trying to, it actually makes sense in this context because she's a psychiatrist, right?
Right.
She's actually very crucial because she humanizes them,
Right.
Yeah.
especially in the contrast of the beast later.
yeah.
And it really, you're on the side of McAvoy's characters.
Yes.
Even though they're
Exactly.
doing terrible things.
Exactly.
You are trying to relate to them because she is, humanizing them.
Right.
And it's almost an impossible task because she has to be this exposition delivery system,
Right.
in terms of, but it's also very necessary because and it actually gives us some of the coolest moments of this movie where it's like, like there's two so I heard there's favorables and there's unfavorables in terms of personalities.
Yeah.
And within Wendell Crumb, there's two unfavorable. I think I'm saying it right. Unfavorable personalities. Patricia and Dennis, and then the others are favorable characters like Hedwig and all the other ones. And without her, you wouldn't know this power dynamic that is at play within Wendell Crumb's mind.
I think they call it I have to look it up again.
The light?
The system is
the system. Well, they talk about having the light, and maybe there is a system.
Which is no. I think in DID, whenever you have multiple personalities, when you have to refer to the whole, I believe it's. Correct me if I'm wrong, people listening, but I think it's called the system, and I think she says it too when referring to them as a whole. And like the therapists on the YouTuber, they're like, "Oh wow, that's how they do that." Yep.
Yeah, it's just so interesting that there's this power struggle within his mind. I don't know if I've ever seen a movie that actually illustrates it as well as this, or demonstrates it as well as this, where it's you understand. There's like the good and the bad within him, and they're kind of like, I don't know, there's the authority figures and the ones who are easily manipulated, I guess, and unfortunately
they're all they're basically having inner relationships with each other as well.
Right.
And, like you said, the struggle. And
I guess let's put the spotlight on James McAvoy again. We kind of touched on him, but I really don't think this is possible without him.
It is not.
So I know we briefly touched on how we really like his performance in this, but I think this episode would be not good if we didn't devote more time to that. So let's... James McAvoy, what do y'all think of this this performance here?
Nah, it was all right. I said nobody ever.
I think it's crazy how quickly he changes his demeanor, and then you're Dennis now.
Yeah,
like you can just see it.
Body language, posture, the way he's
physical acting.
Yeah.
And like usually you would think, with most movies they distinguish them by a different costume, but the scenes where he switches without changing clothing, and you can see the change, like you know it just by looking at his face. You're like, oh, this is Dennis, or this is Patricia. Like you know exactly who it is.
This scene in particular, it's on, or we just passed it. He is Patricia, and he's like he's like making them food, and then he switches over to Dennis when the sandwich cut is crooked. And he's like, that's not right. Like you see his face change and his posture straightens, and
I think my favorite,
it's really crazy.
One of my favorite transitions that he does is when I think he's the Beast at this point. Or no, he's not the Beast. He's oh man, he might be Dennis. He's one of them. But he transitions into Patricia, and he's not wearing a shirt, but he's got this shawl over, and there's this, like, he subtly covers the shawl over his chest. And it's like just this, like, oh gosh, like it's just like weird to think about.
That also that part when he's talking to his therapist, and she's saying, like, am I talking to Dennis? Like, I know I'm talking to Dennis, and he has to like switch out of pretending to be Barry. And just the face change that happens in that moment. I'm like, oh gosh, like he's so he's so good at that control.
He's acting as someone acting or pretending to and hiding a different level underneath.
He is.
So many levels. It's crazy.
I mean, some of it, and just the physique as well. I mean, it's like Christian Bale movies back and forth. His transformation all within one movie.
I know.
You know, he's like he just the full control. You know, you feel him imposingly like grow bigger, and muscular, like as it becomes the Beast versus, you know, Hedwig or something like that, or Patricia. And all within the same almost shot. It seems like a lot of these.
Yeah, I will say on my first watch, Hedwig was almost a like jump the shark moment for me.
It was for me too.
Like when he shows up, you're like, okay, like I don't know about Hedwig.
I like Hedwig.
No, but the thing is, no, I watched it the second time, and while I think the accent is like a little, like he puts a little too much on it, and there's a little too much, I don't know. I'm also like, hey, this is a grown man who thinks he's a kid. That is how he would. I don't know.
That's how it would come across.
Yeah, exactly. So I was like, no, head would make sense.
I just like to imagine McAvoy making a sandwich. He's like, I put a little bit of mustard on it for Hedwig, or a lot of mustard. I'm feeling a lot of mustard on this one.
My favorite moment, also one of the gross moments, though, is when he wants to kiss Anya Taylor-Joy's character. and he kisses, really awkward kiss, and he's like, you might be pregnant now. Like,
It's painful.
I'm sorry, I was hilarious to me.
It's painful. Here, okay. I guess. Oh, not really much of a hot take, but I was slightly off put by Hedwig.
Some people are,
and it's not because he isn't convincing. I actually think he's very convincing as Hedwig. It's just the choice to have Hedwig.
Yeah,
you know, I think I would be okay without a 9-year-old personality in this movie.
I think he's kind of, but when you think about it, he's kind of crucial to it because he is, in a way, he is how they're able to convince this guy to, like, he's how they make progress because he's an easily convinced version.
Yeah, that's fair. Well, they you could have just had like a really innocent personality that is very gullible.
If it makes you feel any better, there was actually quite a bit that Shyamalan took out that involved him, and I was watching some like back and forth with him going over these deleted scenes, and he's like, "Yeah, I was just being redundant, and it was cool, but didn't help the movie, so I took it out." And I watched them, and it's like him playing hide and seek with her and wanting to dance with her and talking about like it being a first date and stuff. And so I'm like, I think it was a smart move.
Yeah. Unnecessary stuff. But we'll kind of move through the plot. I think the plot is important, but not, I think, super crucial to our conversations here.
There's not a lot there.
So the girls find loophole or they find ways to try and get out, but they're constantly foiled by Wendell Crumb at every turn, and they get kind of moved into different cells and killed off. I
would say the Horde over Wendell.
Not immediately.
Kevin.
Well, you make it sound like that. Yeah, don't. I would say the Horde or the specific person, because Kevin has nothing to do with this.
But that's the person's name, so I'm just going to say Kevin Wendell Crumb because that's the person's name.
I think it just gets confusing when you refer it that way in a movie.
So you just want me to say the Horde?
Either the Horde or specifically Dennis or something, because
I can't keep track all the personalities at the time every time in this movie.
So what are we debating?
There's like 9.
What are we debating?
No, we're just talking about the plot.
We're talking about the girls trying to escape.
Yeah.
And I feel like, I mean, the tension building is really good. Them kind of making steps forwards and backwards and then getting caught and
lots of tension.
Physically breaking through the walls. And
the tension is so effective in this movie. I knew exactly what was going to happen because I'd seen it before, but it was still really, tension is good in a movie when you're watching it, even though you've already seen it and you're like, oh, I hope they make it out in this scene.
Yes, exactly.
I'm just like, ooh, there's a chance. Like, you know what's going to happen, but you're still like, you know what? Maybe there's a chance that they can make it out. That's when you know a movie's good at managing or just having a good sense of tension.
I do love that all girls have their own form of initiative. Like one, obviously the girl whose birthday it was, like she's definitely I'm going to fight now. I'm going to do this. I have to be proactive all the time. I can't cry. I can't sit in the corner, and I really appreciate that. It doesn't exactly work out in her favor later, but usually those kind of actions were what would get girls out of these situations.
That actress's name, by the way, is Haley Lou Richardson.
I think there's one thing about this movie that I feel like it's sort of something that happens with his movies in general is when he writes normal people, it's almost like it seems as if he's writing people that he's only observed, but he doesn't really understand them. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like when you have dialogue with the regular people, for instance, the beginning when the daughter's talking to her dad saying like, oh yeah, she kind of like yells in school and blah, blah, blah. It feels like a conversation he has kind of like almost generated as like, yeah, this is what normal people say. Yeah. And he only relates to the sort of twisted, messed up people.
Yeah. Well, I think he gets better.
We're talking about Shyamalan or a character?
Yeah, Shyamalan. It's not, and that's not necessarily saying that he doesn't understand how normal people talk or what their thought process is, but he definitely seems to be more in tune with people that have kind of twisted minds or just are more complicated.
What's funny that you say that. I think their performances become more realistic once they're put in a position of distress.
Yeah.
Like when they're put in this, like, oh, we have to fight to get out of here. What I also appreciate is he doesn't make them idiots in this situation.
Yeah.
Like in any other horror movie, these would be ditzy, dumb, blonde brunette.
Right, who are just kind of crying and don't know what
screaming.
to do.
Like,
and it would be the inverse where the girl that's traumatized would know exactly what to do, or like, hey, we need to do this.
Yeah.
But she's not. She's kind of sitting away separate from them.
Yeah, like Haley, what's her name? Yeah, Haley Lou Richardson's character, I actually kind of was on her side for the beginning there. I'm like, yeah, y'all should like take this guy.
That makes sense because that's I feel like that's like, that would be your role in this situation. Be that
I have never been in. Okay, I actually have been held at gunpoint, so that's funny. I do have this situation to, and so we'll not get into that. But I feel like if I am an action person, if I am in a situation like that, I am either I will tackle this guy or I will run away.
I could
like I'm not just going to wait and see what happens.
So did you tackle that guy with the gun?
I ran away.
Okay.
What's Anya Taylor-Joy's character's name? I keep forgetting.
I froze up.
Yeah, sorry.
Her name is Casey.
Casey, that's right. Thank you. I could imagine you in that scenario going over to Casey and just like shaking her, like, what is wrong with you?
I would be shaking her because I'm a shouter, like, move, like, go, let's go.
Move your butt.
Yeah, so like situations like that frustrate me. David, I feel like you'd be the same way. I feel like you're not a freezer.
No, if there's a term of
he's more of a microwave guy.
When it comes to my household appliances, I have a whole ranking system, actually.
So you're saying he's partially frozen while everything else is like
it's moving
in action.
No, but in reality, I am when it comes to fight or flight, I always go fight first. So
so I found that, to sum up, I was identifying with this main girl here, and I thought he did a good job writing her character despite the kind of stilted opening portion where she's just like it's the typical mold of like, oh, popular girl, there's the weird girl over there, yeah, she does things in class, la 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 la, let's go. But you're right,
it is kind of interesting though, because it's like, if you think of it as being intentionally that way, where everyday life seems kind of fake, but people with trauma or these internal thoughts or, issues and high emotions or low emotions, whatever, are what is normal, that it kind of lends itself to the theme of the movie, where it's talking about how these people that are abused or have these problems they're not so much problems, but ways that they're enhanced and become almost above the rest because they are unique in that way.
Yeah.
So if it's intentional, it makes sense. But I don't know. It's just something I noticed about this movie.
Yeah, and I think that's multiple movies of his. Old at least had that as well, where it's just like these characters who are just, I don't know, not
flawed, or
like the writing is just like slightly off kilter.
Yeah,
like it's just
It comes across to me as the equivalent of like you're being put on camera and then all of a sudden you're like, I don't know what I do with my hands. Like, what do I do
Ricky
with my
Bobby
hands?
Situation.
So it's like him
like
trying
that,
to call back, like, what do just normal conversations sound like? They kind of sound like this.
So a good example, and I'm sorry to interrupt you.
I have one too.
So I sent you this video, Reese, and I don't know if I did to you, AJ, but I had to direct and star in a thing for my work video, and I was editing it today, and so many takes where I'm like, what do I do? Why backpack on shoulder? Is this what I do? And there's a moment where I'm literally sitting there, I'm like, roll cameras. And they're like, action. And I'm like, That's the word. And
Action.
everyone was laughing, and I was just like,
Oh, he needs to show you that
oh
video.
man,
It's
I
really-
just. But the thing is when you're in the moment, you think you can act normal, and then
Yeah.
you try, and it's
And you don't.
Yeah, I was thinking of Signs when he actually shows up himself in the movie.
oh yeah,
And his dialogue there to me is always awkward because he's like, yeah, they just don't seem to like water or something. And it's like,
Oh, that movie. I love Signs, but
That was
that
just-
whole interaction is so, in my opinion, bad.
yeah,
I know.
yeah. But that's the precise example of, you know,
Yeah.
because that's
writing.
him
yeah.
there saying that line.
Yeah, he's
Uh,
actually
not-
better in other movies. He's better
Yeah.
in this one in his little brief cameo.
Yeah, but he's not understanding what makes a dialogue natural.
Yeah.
Or
for
it's-
like regular people. I
It's
don't
his
know.
own odd dialogue
Yeah.
that you can tell when it's him for some reason. Like
Yeah.
it's not horrible, but it's not normal either. It's off.
Yeah,
Well,
the
people
case,
do
but
talk
anyway.
about Shyamalan's writing dialogue and how
Yeah.
it's almost his style. It's not even
Yeah.
bad.
Yeah.
It's just
His
his
sty-
style.
yeah,
It's the
Yeah,
way
yeah.
I think it's just the way he does it.
Yeah.
I think
Yeah,
it's
you-
full,
yeah.
you
I
might
think
be
it's
right.
fully intentional. He's, as we've said, he's an auteur. He knows what he's doing. Whether it works for you or not is a different story.
Yeah, I think you're
that's
right.
what it is.
I think that yeah.
Moving on in the plot, though, let's get to the second half of this and kind of start to wrap things up. We are starting to get to the point where this beast is referenced in his meetings with is this a psychologist, right? Like the beast is coming. He doesn't tell her the beast is coming, but in all these other conversations, you're hearing little references to this other thing that's supposed to be coming, which I think is a great hook to be like, just keep you on board with the movie
Like,
and
what's going
in
on with
anticipation with what this beast is.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm just going to say, like, this movie went down a lot better this watch than it did the first time I watched it. I liked it the first time I saw it. But this time with, I guess, just the knowledge that it was an Unbreakable sequel and just being more in tune with or on the wavelength of McAvoy's performance, I was just really enjoying it a lot more. And I don't know why, but the first time I saw this, the whole Beast lead up thing wasn't really working for me. But this time I was like totally hooked. Like, oh, I'm
Interesting.
anticipating what is
I
gonna
really
happen
was.
here.
I was
Right.
hooked
I know.
the first time. I remember.
Maybe it was because it's kind of introduced halfway through versus early on in the movie.
Could be.
Because usually the big threat is, I don't know, built up from the beginning. And yes, we had our big threat
Right.
there with us, but you're not introduced to this other element until later, where it's like, oh, there's actually something coming.
Yeah.
But once they drop that thing and that starts to percolate and build, I'm like, okay, this movie's just, it's firing on all cylinders, and you're just really starting to get really worried for the group of girls, and the psychologist, she makes does a house call, I guess, to his place, and talk about a moment filled with tension. Just when the psychologist is at his place and they're just having that conversation, and she's like, I need to go to the bathroom. She leaves the handkerchief in the keyhole, what was that? Was that to...
Oh, to keep it from locking all the way.
Okay, yeah, right. I knew it was to some indicator of like, oh, I either need to get out of here or I'm going to try to find if there's people here.
It was an interesting foresight move where I'm like, it was a really smart move, but I'm like,
Yeah.
Why in the moment, is that what I would have thought? I don't know.
Yeah. So David, I guess I'll ask you, how are you feeling at this, like, let's say the half to 3/4 point of this movie where we're almost to the peak of this, the beast reveal, and we have the whole, one of the girls gets killed, and we have the interaction with the psychologist where she's starting to really be onto him. She knows that, these other the more, I don't know, bad personalities are taking control of the wheel, and So yeah, how are you feeling at this point?
Oh, I'm feeling great. I think that I was sold the first time I watched this, and just getting to watch, McAvoy do his thing throughout the movie, it just at the point where I guess this is in my brain where you get to see Hedwig's dance sequence, and I just think he loses himself in these, and I'm on a roller coaster ride. Like, I know at this point that, especially when you see it multiple times, that he is just in his zone. I almost just see him as a 9-year-old in this. It's weird.
I know I've been talking a lot, but I wanted to, you just unlocked something in my mind about this performance. This is one of those movies where you get the impression that the actor was just so free and so confident in what they were doing that they were able to just perfectly play around in the space, in the set, and do whatever they wanted. There's other movies that feel like the set is like oppressive and it crushes the performance, where they like just there's no wiggle room for them to they feel weirdly constrained.
Right.
It can be like the most big budget of movies and the performance just feels like it's like they're working in a straitjacket. This feels like he was just let off, like he's a barking dog that was just let off the chain just to do whatever
just play
they wanted.
Around, yeah.
But sorry, continue. I just wanted to interject that.
I think that fits perfectly with what I was saying. And I watched an interview with him, James McAvoy, where he was talking about where Shyamalan showed him the script and he's like, read it, let me know what you think if you want to do the role. And James was like, okay, oh, this is interesting.
Yeah.
Wait, what's happening? Wait, what's happening?
Like every 10 pages would be like a new development.
Did you watch that video where
I did.
He's got more and more excited. He's like, oh, I could play with this. Like, I could do stuff with this. So
I didn't realize how thick his accent was, by the way.
Super Scottish.
Like, I'm surprised he's able to like tamp that down so well.
It's impressive.
Did you say so Scotch?
Scottish.
Oh, I thought you said Scotch.
So Scotch.
Yeah, what a Scotch. Jacqueline McCafferty.
Anyone else want to talk about how they're feeling at this point in the movie, at the mid to 3/4 point? AJ, how are you at this point in the film? Any interjections here?
No, I'm on board as well, and thrillers aren't typically my thing unless it's more maybe like a psychological thriller. This kind of blends, the physical and your typical. I don't know. The tension is very well balanced. You have a perfect, I think, blend of screen time between these different identities and characters. It's a little bit more slow and methodical, but I'm never like feeling it drag or anything. Like there's no second act sag or anything, in my opinion.
Yeah.
I see where things are going and I'm hooked. I want to see where it's going. And I'm fully on board.
Yeah. And as we're kind of watching the movie in the background, I do think it's important that we bring up probably the darkest scene in the movie. We learn about Casey's the origin or kind of her past, why she is the way she is. And we learn that her uncle has been abusing her since she was very little. And here's what I'm talking about.
Just to put it.
Yeah, here's what I'm talking about. Shyamalan dealing with themes that are above a PG-13 level. Like I've seen so many R-rated movies, yet this movie has one of the more disturbing scenes that I've ever seen, where he's taking Casey out to go hunting, but they're like, oh, he's taking advantage of her as a little girl, and he's set up the tent, and he's basically tricking her to try and get her clothes off by pretending.
Uncle, by the way.
Yeah, I said that.
Okay, I didn't remember.
By pretending to be animals, and there's all these implications in that scene. Obviously, it cuts away to like the shot of a stream, but in your mind, you're like, I know exactly what happened.
Yeah.
And it's very, very off-putting.
Oh, yeah.
And by the way, that scene where, they cut to after what may or may have happened,
it happened.
Yeah, I know.
It definitely happened with what we learn about the character later on.
He did it tastefully where you don't have to like see anything, but it cuts to her, the little girl with the gun pointing at him. And that's, if you do a shot for shot next to Unbreakable, where the son has, Bruce Willis at gunpoint, a lot of the lines are very similar. I was watching a video that was showing it. The lines mimic each other.
Yeah, but I think this movie's actually darker.
Oh, it is
than
much
that
darker.
film.
I'm just saying it's impressive that he had the foresight to sort of incorporate things from that first movie and weave it into this.
Yeah.
So
I think-
tastefully.
We were actually having a conversation when we were first watching this where I said, like, I think this is his darkest movie. And you said, oh, really? Like, compared to all the others? I'm like, yeah, pretty sure. Like, all the subject matter is just really dark. It's just bad.
Which is funny because I think if I'm to say his second darkest movie, it's Unbreakable. Like when there's stuff in Unbreakable, like think about that scene with the family when he's rescuing them.
Sure.
The two parents died and the daughter has been abused and she's tied up to like the AC unit, or it wasn't an AC unit. It was something
Whatever it is.
but it like pipes or something.
Yeah.
But both of these movies are very like in hindsight, it totally makes sense that they're of a piece.
Yeah.
I would say Sixth Sense would also fall under the darker side. The themes, and also their
It's
parents
dark.
murdering their children in that movie.
But here's the thing. Like, Sixth Sense is just on its face dark, but it is not, like, kind of sickly dark.
There's
some pretty sickly scenes in that
No,
movie.
what I'm talking about, like, the implications of things. Like, yes, in Sixth Sense, spoilers, he's dead. Like, we get it. And the son has suffered some... He
Wait,
sees
what?
dead people. Sorry.
Okay, I was thinking like that wasn't even on my brain as part of the sickly stuff. Like,
I don't get what you're...
there's tons of people that died in that movie where they show their story, and it's pretty awful.
Yeah.
like, suicidal
So
stuff. And
Or the mom killing her daughter.
The difference
true. That's
is there's something about that movie that feels a little more on the side of fantasy than this one is. Like, this one does bring about the whole supernatural, like, the beast, and obviously this isn't what DID really is or anything, but there's an element of Casey's story, the way it plays out, and her history is almost too realistic.
Yeah.
Like, that's why it's so dark to me, is
And-
that
and-
it feels like, no, this is something that happens to a lot of people in a lot of cases that we don't even know about because nobody brings it up.
And it doesn't
So-
help that Dennis, one of the personalities, is like, take your shirt off, take your pants off. Like, he's kind of a pervert.
Yeah. Granted, I think they explain that too, that he's also OCD and wants to clean their clothes. And
Yeah, but he's getting to have both sides.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
a have your
voyeuristic kind of
cake and eat
thing.
it too type of
Yeah.
situation where he's like, I'm OCD, but also I like looking at little girls.
Yeah.
Like it's yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway,
It's not
fun.
good. Not
Fun
good.
subject.
So my point why it feels so dark is that it's darker when it gets a little too close to reality. And that's what this movie does, is I feel like it does feel like Shyamalan was really trying to actually showcase what serious situations like this are
Yeah.
without having to indulge it too much either.
Yeah.
So it's like you're just getting a little glimpse of something where you're like, I really don't want to know any more about that.
Yeah. So at this point, the two girls are dead, apart except for Casey, and the psychologist has been killed as well. The beast has fully come out, and he crushes the spine of the psychologist. There's a gnarly scene where Casey walks in on the beast just like eating the insides of one of the girls, and I'm like, gosh, again, this is PG-13.
Well, they don't show him eating.
It's,
Yeah, but-
it's kind of hidden,
But what I'm saying is like
McRib is back.
the McRib is back. Yeah.
that would be an excellent ad.
But I'm not loving it.
Yeah, but oh my gosh, the transformation into the beast is so cool. Also, like at this point, I was watching the movie thinking like, okay, this still doesn't feel like it's of the same world as Unbreakable. There's something missing. And then just as I was thinking that, the music started to take on an actual theme.
Right.
Like there was actually like, there's like a swelling to the music as he starts to change. And I'm like, okay, now
Yeah,
I'm
I can
starting
see
to
this, yeah.
now I'm starting to feel some of it. And it was not James Newton Howard, which I feel like would have been really cool if they could have gotten him back.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, but the composer for this one was West Dillon Thordson, who I had never heard of.
Oh, wow.
But the score for this movie was probably the weak link until later on, where it was just like your typical thriller music, like kind of like you can't hum any of these themes. It's just like thriller music.
I will say, based on the little research I did on the music, that I don't know if this was intentional or not because I didn't dig deep enough, but the music is reminiscent of animals' noises and roars that have been distorted
and
to a
because
point.
they were at the zoo, that makes sense. That's cool. I like that. But yeah, the towards like the fourth quarter of this movie, it starts to actually have theme music that is indicative of kind of Unbreakable-ish, I don't know, adjacent sounds. Especially when he starts to change for the first time. The music starts to swell and he starts to become all veiny.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay, now we're cooking.
So
like it was
I think my previous experience with his movies, like the last thing I think I had seen was The Village. Like at this point I hadn't seen Lady in the Water, or what, that was it, right? That was the name of Lady in the Water.
Yeah, right.
That's right.
Oh, okay.
And Paul Giamatti.
So I hadn't seen that, which is a whole other story. But with The Village, my experience of it was I was disappointed because I liked the concept of it being
a monster,
an actual monster, and it wasn't. So I was almost kind of expecting this to go the same way, where, you think there's going to be a monster that shows up, but it doesn't. And so when he finally gave me that actual supernatural moment that I had been hoping for, I felt so satisfied, where I was like, yes, okay, you're actually doing something kind of monster-like. So it was, and oh gosh, there was something so chilling about the moment he goes to the train station and fully embodies the beast and just running back to his location. The run was so spooky. Like there was something just weirdly so fast about it that got like, it got
and also
goosebumps.
having it be in a train, tying it to Unbreakable.
Right, yeah.
Well, and it was the train so his dad died on the train. That was the beginning of Unbreakable. So that's how they connect too. But yeah, I was just thinking
that scene under the light where he's just like runs.
Have you guys ever been out like walking by
gosh.
yourself at night and imagined like what would you do if someone started sprinting at you? Like, I've thought about that.
No,
and I was like, would I run away or would I like run
like
at them?
like in Get Out?
Yes, exactly. Less comical though.
Oh gosh, yeah, it was really creepy though.
And so our final confrontation here, as I feel like I always say final confrontation because it happens a lot in the movies that we talk about.
Yep.
I was noticing there is almost an Evil Dead quality to the camera when it goes into the first person view of the beast.
Oh, yeah.
Like it literally goes into first person. You see Casey off way in the distance, like down this very long hallway, and you see the beast from first person just coming in close.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, this is like giving me Evil Dead vibes.
Yeah.
It's pretty cool. But I love this final confrontation, especially that when he starts to crawl up the wall and you're like, oh, this is real. And then like he actually willed himself to do this. And this movie's not just this psychological thing where things are imagined. It's
James McAvoy did it. He actually was method acting and was like, I'm going to bring this beast
his muscles
to life.
Yeah. Well, honestly, I would believe it. This guy's commitment to the role, he could do whatever he wanted. He could start swinging around like Spider-Man. I would think, yep, he actually did.
He was eating actual human bodies.
Yeah.
But the scene in the hallway where he's just like punching out the lights and then crawling closer.
Yeah. I heard Armie Hammer was trying to get this role.
Oh,
there's no cannibalism is the problem.
There is.
There was for a second.
That was the joke. Poor taste.
Wait, yeah, you're right. Probably doesn't taste very good.
But at that point, Reese, where he like hits the lights and is crawling out, it made me think of a video game where you have like a gun with like 2 bullets and you're like, you better hit them.
Yeah.
And then they get
coming towards
closer
you.
and closer.
Yep.
But maybe one of my favorite scenes of this movie is when she's locked herself in the cell. And by the way, a lot of poor uses of this shotgun. A lot of you could have really, I don't know, been more careful about how you aimed your shots, but whatever, that's fine. She gets a couple of solid hits at the end here. But when he starts to pull the bars apart and his eyes just look so weird and like his teeth are just like it's like blood in them, and it just looks so feral and so intense. And then he sees her scars and stuff, and he's like, "Oh, you're one of me. You're one of the good ones." Or I have he says, "Yeah, you're different from the rest." And then he's like, "The broken are more evolved. Rejoice." And I'm like, this is so good.
Yeah.
Well, especially it's the culmination of her, literally like kind of stripping down layer by layer to her, trauma, and that's a whole fleshing out of her identity and characters, why she wears the layers and that kind of thing. And yeah, it's just depth.
Yeah, in a way, it's stripping the layers of her character and revealing who she truly is. So she kind of has her own, just revelation of, okay, man.
Well, and it's her, she almost sees eye to eye with the Beast.
Yeah.
And has, that moment with Kevin as well, but it's down to the core beyond all the other layers, so to speak, or identities.
Yeah. They're like on opposite sides of the same coin.
Right. And then you have literally the forcible opening of the bars, and just I don't know. There's a lot of,
there's a lot going on.
I'm lost my words there, but yeah, it's good,
powerful.
Good shots there.
Yeah. Of course, we also have, once this movie ends and she does get out of the prison, she realizes she's in the zoo. The Beast wanders off, and he has a conversation with all of his personalities, and they're like, "Wow, we got powers now." And then it pans over to it. Or it doesn't pan over, but it cuts to this other shot where we start to hear the Unbreakable music, the James Newton Howard music, and we see Bruce Willis in this bar or parlor or whatever. Yeah, seeing the news of what had happened with this the Beast, and then Mr. Glass is referenced as well. Let's just have a discussion on the whole final act of this movie. So the Beast being revealed, his whole thing. And then the big reveal that this is, in fact, the sequel to Unbreakable. Kick us off, David.
Alrighty. We've been singing this movie's praises a lot. I'll say the one thing I remember being slightly let down by the first time I watched it, and less so the second time. The reveal of the Beast was slightly underwhelming the first time I watched it.
I agree.
And I think it was because they built it up, and I was like, they had pictures on the wall of like Hedwig drawing and all these other things. I was expecting something a little more dramatic, and I don't know why I did, because this is a Shyamalan movie and he keeps things real. You know what I mean? I don't know what I mean. I don't know what I mean when I say that. But his movies are more rooted in realism. When there is something that's supernatural, it has a real backbone to it. And in this case, he can only be as beast-like as the human body may allow. Like, sure, he is stronger, he has superhuman strength and stuff, the veins are popping out. It makes sense. So watching it again, I just think that the initial reaction was slight disappointment. I kind of wanted something a little more intense, like things popping out of his skin, turning into something a little bit more beast-like. So, but that being said, second time watching, it was easier for me to take in, and it's still horrifying to imagine.
Yeah.
But what do you guys think?
I think that the thing about it that was so creepy to me is that it's very much like what growing up I would have expected possession to look like, where it's not necessarily that someone just would turn into a monster, but there's this uncanny aspect about them where they're a little bit stronger than a normal person. There's something off about them. And I think this depiction really pulled off that for me. And having a Christian background and knowing all about demonic possession and blah, 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 that's definitely like a fear in the back of my mind somewhere. And so seeing that represented in sort of how I imagined it to be depicted was really creepy for me. So I think it lived up to expectation, or actually surpassed my expectation in a way, because it was a little more tangible, I guess, for
Yeah.
me.
Yeah. Noah, AJ, how about y'all? Any thoughts?
I like it. I mean, like David said, it's slightly, I don't want to say necessarily underwhelming, just, it wasn't quite what my mind was expecting.
Mm-hmm.
And I do think that you have to get the second watch, you know what's going to happen. So you're like, oh, okay.
Yeah.
You're more
Yeah.
down for it.
I do think it is slightly constrained by budget, and we'll get into that later. So maybe that factors into it a little bit.
I also think that I would have liked a little more of it too, I guess. Because they kind of do just once it's revealed, you have a couple of quick scenes and then, oh, it's over now.
Yeah.
Again, could be a budgetary thing.
Yeah. Yeah. So I would have liked just a little bit more of it.
Although
but I do think it's good.
The Beast is like the end result of all this hype. So most of the excitement in this movie comes from the build-up. So once you reveal it, it's like, what else are you going to do to inspire something to get the audience through the rest of the movie? So I think it was kind of smart to have him limited in this.
I think they made him a little too much, a little too much fantasy side. Like I like him, being able to increase his muscles a little bit.
So the opposite of what I was thinking.
Yeah, sorry.
That's fine.
It's more like I want him to be, this monster, so to speak, but I don't want it to be something like it was just shown on scene where she's like trying to stab him and then suddenly his skin like is tough enough that it breaks the thing she's trying to stab him with. I don't exactly want that. I just think him being, like a lot more tough, a lot like almost in a constant state of heightened adrenaline.
Roid rage.
Yeah. And, just stronger in general.
So like an actual realistic thing a human might be able to do mentally.
It's still not realistic at all what I'm thinking, but it's more within
More real.
within this film's spectrum.
Yeah. AJ, how about you? Any final thoughts on the ending of this movie?
No, I think my initial thought of the Beast was underwhelming, especially compared to what I was, the setup for it. But once it got going into it, I thought it was, oh, okay, I really see this where it's at. And I thought it was a good balance of the supernatural and the mundane. And that's what I really appreciate about this movie. Kind of like Irina says, it's tangible. Like you feel like this is just on the cusp of reality. It's not so far one way or the other where, this is just, too gruesome and realistic. This could happen tomorrow or whatever. And, and then you just feel terrible, but it's also not just off in fantasy land where you're just checked out because, oh, that's just unrelatable.
Right.
I thought they walked, Shyamalan and McAvoy's portrayal really walked that tightrope right down the middle for me, and balanced it. Whereas the Beast embodies the, you could go the metaphysical, or whatever, just say, oh, it's just humanity is evil, and this is him at the depth of the depravity and like the darkness of man. But no, this is actually beyond. This is actually supernatural, but still, he's not like turning into a dragon or anything, So, I still think the arrow hit the bullseye on this.
Nice. All right. With that said, let's close out the story portion of this film. That film being Split. I almost said Glass. Split. We're gonna take a quick break, and on the other end, we'll get into our brief reviews with numbered scores, get in what critics thought, talk some box office, and close out with some franchise talk. So we'll see you then. Welcome back. Let's talk Split. David, you got our scores there in a little bowl. You want to pull them at random for our reviews?
I will. First up, if I can unfold it, Noah with an 8.5.
Yeah, I think it's a really good movie. And I don't know, I don't really have an in-depth analysis so much, but I just think that this is really a good showcase of, you know, a good concept meets a phenomenal actor. And, you know, I guess a good cast, as well as, you know, great direction. Yeah, it's really cool. I like it.
All right. 8.5 for Noah.
Yep.
Next up, Reese with, I think this is an 8.
Yeah, it's an 8.
Kind of looks like a 9. Kind of hard to tell.
It's an 8. As we've been breaking it down, though, I'm like tempted to push it a little bit up. But I'll talk it through. I really like this movie, and I didn't think that would be my take in going into my second watch here. My first experience watching this movie was it's really good. Yeah, it's a good movie. Good little thriller. Nothing more than that, really. 7 out of 10. Like, that was my theatrical experience of it. I did really like the twist at the end that it was an Unbreakable sequel, but it never gave me that the warm and fuzzies of it being like an Unbreakable movie. But watching it again with the added context of it being a Unbreakable sequel, which is something that I never had, it hit a little different the second time around, and I liked it more. I think a lot of those little breadcrumbs of it being Unbreakable or of it being in that same universe are there, while it distinguishes itself so much from Unbreakable and manages to be its own thing. So it's, in a way, it's almost the perfect type of sequel. I'll echo what Noah said. I think it's perfectly cast. I love James McAvoy in this, and I really like Anya Taylor-Joy here as well, who at this point had only starred in like 2 movies, with The Witch being the other one. So she did really good. My only criticism with her is I think it's not a criticism, but every shot she is just almost on the verge of tears. Like she has like just tears in her eyes. And I'm like, oh, okay.
She's acting with her eyes, not her words.
Yeah, but I'm like, it's almost too much constantly being on the precipice of crying, which I get.
You say that the next time you're kidnapped
I know. But
by a guy with 24 personalities,
Reese,
one of which is a cannibalistic demon.
Were you on the verge of tears, Reese, when you were at gunpoint? Or were like
No, I wasn't. We're moving on from that, though. Yeah, really good movie. I'm normally not one to like movies that are confined to one location like this, where it's people trying to figure out how to get out. But this movie does so many cool things, like just with James McAvoy's character, with the different personalities. You never know, like the tension between, like, you never know who you're gonna get at this hour talking to you makes it a really interesting and just engaging cinematic experience. I also love the idea that they're cooking up this new personality, like the ultimate personality to end all personalities, the Beast. That I find that fascinating. And then I think the final act of this movie is just like knocked out, drag out, perfect execution of like what the best thrillers do, where you see the Beast fully, I don't know, embodied. And James McAvoy does such a good physical performance as this thing. You believe that he could just like rip the doors off this prison cell and do whatever he wants. Like it's when he is pulling those bars apart, I don't believe those bars are fake. Like, I feel like he's actually pulling real prison bars apart, and he's like squeezing his face through it. It just is so cool. Yeah, great movie. Liked it a lot more this time around, as I already stated. I used to slot this below The Visit. Now I definitely put it above The Visit in terms of my Shyamalan rankings. So here's that to rewatches of movies, how they can change your opinion of something. I'll bump it up to 8.5. I don't really have a lot of negatives to say about it.
Yeah.
it doesn't quite like I don't feel just this ecstatic feeling when I am done watching it, and it doesn't feel perfect. I just can't argue getting it up to like the 9 levels, but it's definitely a great movie. So I'll bump it up to 8.5. I'll be generous. So yeah.
All right, 8.5 from Reese. Next up we have David, me, with a 9.
Dang.
Yeah, I think this movie, I probably would have given it an 8.5 the first time I watched it. The second time around, it really, I mean, it just grows on you.
Talk about a movie I never thought would be better on the second watch.
It's weird. It almost makes me think, what will happen if I watch it a third time? I kind of want to now. And, you know, as we do these podcasts, we have it on the background, and it's hard to keep your eyes away. I mean, it is. It's so good. And half the excitement is in getting to see James McAvoy do his thing and having, you know, just subtitles and stuff. Somehow it's still engaging. So there's something to be said about that. I'm going to bump mine up to a 9.5. I was thinking about this the whole movie. I was thinking, why am I faulting this movie? I mean, almost across the board, it's just superficial things that I was kind of critiquing it on. The biggest being my expectation of the Beast was that I thought he was going to be bigger. Like, wow, good job there, Sherlock. That's why you should deduct a whole point.
The Beast wasn't big enough.
Exactly. And it's silly.
Where's his library?
I think the themes.
Where's Belle? Where are the songs?
Where are the Yetis?
True, no Yetis.
So when it comes down to this movie, it's tackling really intense themes. I mean, the whole DID thing is one thing, but then the trauma of somebody dealing with hurt and, you know, living in an abusive family, having, you know, I don't even want to like say the words, like it's like bad things. And then seeing how somebody who has gone through that has to fight through and deal with it in their own way. And I love thrillers. I love when it comes to Shyamalan, when he is firing at all cylinders, I love his movies. I love Sixth Sense. I love this movie, and you know, I don't want to say the other ones. I like and love quite a few other ones he does. I just don't want to say it in case we talk about them. It's just, this movie is really good. I think a couple things that could have helped. I do think the music could have been better. Just slightly. I think if they had a better theme or something throughout, I respect
don't really remember
the direction.
The music either.
Yeah.
I respect the direction they went. I think it could have been better. And there's certain choices in scenes that I'm like, you could have delved a little bit farther. Just like, I think they could have pushed the boundaries in some areas a little bit better.
Yeah.
But overall, like, especially the payoff at the end of this movie is so good. When she's sitting in the car, which we don't really talk about, and the police are like, oh, your uncle is out here to take you home, and she's like, you ready to go home? And she just sits there staring at the cop. No words are exchanged, and the cop just looks at her and realizes, oh, she doesn't want to go home. And you know that something, you don't get to see what happens next, but I like to imagine that you know, she doesn't go home and things start getting better for her. But it's just so well done. Like that last scene, for some reason, more than some of the other scenes, kind of like gets under my skin in a good way. I'm just like,
this whole movie,
you know,
gets under your skin in a weird way.
It's so good. Anya Taylor-Joy, Anya Taylor-Joy is phenomenal, and I think she could have done with some more dialogue, but she acts through her eyes. And I was kind of joking when I said that earlier, but she really does. There are scenes when, you know, she's trying to communicate to the other girls there without talking, and she's like pleading with her eyes. And
talk about the definition of doe eyes, by the way.
Yeah, honestly. So overall, just phenomenal performances from everybody. I think McAvoy deserves a 10 out of 10 just for his performance. Such a good movie.
Yeah.
Sorry if I went on too long.
No, that was perfect.
All right.
It's your movie. You talk all you want.
Next up, why don't we just take it up a notch to a 10?
What?
For AJ.
Whoa.
Yeah, this came out of left field for me. played hooky last episode, but I have no previous experience with this entire franchise. So all of these are kind of a fresh watch and a fresh experience for me. So I didn't know what to expect going into this. I remember the trailers and having interest in it. And I know McAvoy is talented, but that's all I really knew. And I didn't really... I guess I was surprisingly unbothered by how little this seemed to connect with the world of Unbreakable. I knew this was a franchise, nominally, but I wasn't looking for the connections actively. And this movie itself was just compelling enough that that didn't even enter into my mind. It's like, okay, where's Unbreakable here? How does this connect? I don't know. I'm not a thriller type of guy, but this is thriller done right in my book. I mean, this is like they nailed it. The tension, the balance. I mean, just the balancing act of this entire movie, juggling plates of, kind of the weighty topics of psychology and human nature depravity, the murky stuff, the bad stuff, but also the supernatural. It's just blended super seamlessly. I realized in this movie is, I'm not ecstatic about this movie, but I can't think of anything wrong with this movie. I can't find any flaws. I don't know what I would change. And like, I completely comfortable giving this a 10, even though like, I'm not raving that I'm not ecstatic over the moon about it, but it's well done. And I'm also very partial to actresses' performances that are kind of what I said earlier, more a thespian, variety. Like actors like Gary Oldman and Charlize Theron. Like I just really appreciate the range and variety instead of. I mean, RDJ is great and Iron Man, I love all that stuff, but like at the end of the day, like a lot of the roles they're in, that's that same actor. You just can't separate them. But seeing that this range of performance from McAvoy in one movie, one film, like the talent, the acting, the performance art of this, having a compelling story and complexity and character and depth, and also the organic tension. Tension in my book is very hard. I have a high standard for tension, and I really, will rail against the movie if I feel like it's forced or cheap. And I didn't get any whiff of that in this movie.
Nice.
And just, just again, that balance of the supernatural and the mundane. And then, tying it on with this theme of David's series here, the superheroes or supernatural people, or people with abilities, but also kind of the grittier or more worldly side of it. That's not necessarily off the comic book page. This just embodies that perfectly, and it's not necessarily a hero. It's just this set of characters, the system that's all encompassing in every which direction, but somehow reflects on, I've seen this movie one time. I'm sure if I saw this movie again, you could pick apart so many layers of visual imagery, metaphors for all sorts of stuff. And I don't know, I'm not well versed in Shyamalan's, his filmography, so I don't know what type of auteur he is or director, what messaging he just does or does not promote. But I mean, this movie just, there's so much balance for just a visual performance, artistry, feeling, emotional story. I don't know, it's a 10, well deserving in my book.
Nice. Our final score.
Our final score is Irina with an 8.5.
All right.
Yeah.
Same as me.
Super solid film.
Same as me.
I think that score is one that for me has a little asterisk on it, because being aware that this is the second in a franchise, that's kind of what the deciding factor is. It's almost like you watched, Fellowship of the Ring, and then you watched Two Towers, and you haven't seen the third film yet, and you asked me how I would score Two Towers. I'm like, well, I don't really know, because I don't have like a full picture.
Yeah.
I feel like I was stopped partway through a story. So
that said, I feel like this movie is pretty standalone.
Oh, it is for sure, and I think that's what gives it a lot of credit, is that you can just enjoy it as a thriller alone, and you don't even have to watch the end scene. You could just watch that all together, and it stands alone. It's not requiring any other content. I think where I deduct points is this rating is more of a gut reaction for me, because I couldn't bring myself to really put it higher for some reason. There was like some weird kind of barrier there. I think one of the reasons is I really wanted to see more of Kevin, like the real, I hesitate to say real Kevin, but
Kevin Wendell Crumb.
More of the positive sides of his nature. Like, you see them sort of fleeting here and there, but I would have liked to have some kind of interaction where it's just him or Barry or whatever actually talking to someone. Because you only get like little glimpses of it, but there's something about his character that is so tragic. I wish it was showcased for me how tragic that is.
Yeah.
And I feel like other people could feel that, but if this were a movie that would be perfect for me, I would want that incorporated in it.
Yeah.
That, as well as,
so it's kind of a personal taste.
Yeah, that's essentially what I'm saying, is that I think this is a great movie, but there's something about like my personal preference on something like this that is keeping me from giving it a perfect score in my mind. And that's pretty much it. Like, I honestly just agree with almost everyone here on their take on this movie. It's really something that requires going back and watching it again too. I would honestly just say that about most of his movies. It's like, no, just go back and watch it a second time to see how you feel, because each one of them has a bit of a surprise or something you don't expect. Like, even if you don't like a movie of his, you have to admit he's really good at developing a story where you can't really tell where it's going. And not just because he's trying to surprise you. It's just he's marching to the beat of his own drum in a way where he's creating a story that isn't stereotypical. Like, there are certain beats to it that are familiar to you, but you don't know the sequence of them exactly. Yeah. So I commend him for that kind of writing. He's really good at that.
I totally agree. He's, despite being known as the twist man.
Right. The twist man.
You never know. I still can't clock his movies in terms
I'm sure
of,
there are people out there who are like, oh yeah, I can guess where this is going, but I'm not that. So I'm really impressed with what he does.
Yeah. AJ, you want to crunch those numbers for us?
All right. So Split has a group average of 9.1.
Dang.
Nice.
Talk about a true underdog story. I mean, the movie's well reviewed, but like, I didn't think it would get that high. That's awesome.
All right. So 9.1, we have a tie with The Prince of Egypt, Django Unchained, and 2001: A Space Odyssey.
That is good company.
Actually, a couple
Very good
more.
company.
Enter the Dragon and Scott Pilgrim versus the World.
All right.
Wow.
Below that, we have some 9.0s. Leon the Professional, It, and Napoleon Dynamite. And above it, we have quite a few 9.4s. Pirates of the Caribbean, Curse of the Black Pearl, For a Few Dollars More, Die Hard, Tarzan, the 1999 animated, King Kong, Aladdin, also the animated. Oh wow, I jumped quite ahead. Sorry. District 9, 9.3, and War for the Planet of the Apes, 9.2. So a little extra context there.
Okay,
Nice.
all right.
And AJ, you missed our last episode with Unbreakable. I didn't know if you watched it or wanted to submit a score for that one, but we had that one at a 9.5 when averaged out.
Yeah, I do want to watch it again. I did see it. I really enjoyed it. And again, kind of coming to this whole franchise with fresh eyes and no expectations whatsoever. So I appreciated it. I think I actually felt, even though these movies are distinct from each other, oddly, this one Split had a quicker pace.
Yeah.
Even though there's, I don't know, I think it's just the variety.
Oh, you're not
in
wrong.
character.
Yeah.
I think that was my drawback. I would probably put Unbreakable at about an 8, personally. I do like it a lot, and I want to see it again.
Yeah. All right, so we'll put a pin in that rating, and then you can get back to us if you want to adjust it or.
Yeah, I mean that's pretty close to what I would have said. So
cool. All right, so there you have it, 9.1 with Split and a pending but still current 9.5 for Unbreakable. That is a strong franchise average so far, I will say.
If we go with the 8 officially, it is a 9.1 group average for Split. Or excuse me, for Unbreakable.
Oh, wait, so that means 9.1, 9.1?
So they would tie it up, yeah. Wow, cool. Good job, Shyamalan. That's look, this is during his... Like, I'm so glad he was able to recover the ball from when he really, truly dropped it as hard as any director has ever dropped it with Last Airbender and, like, The Happening and...
a couple strikeouts.
Yeah, but it's nice to see he's still got his mojo with Split and his previous film from this one, The Visit, which I also really like. Which, again, this movie, in my rewatch, it leapfrogged The Visit. When originally I had The Visit higher, I rewatched The Visit recently for Halloween and rewatched this one. Still really like The Visit, but Split is the better movie.
You know, I watched both The Visit and Split without knowing they were him.
Really?
And I think I enjoy them more because of that.
Yeah.
Because if I know it's him, that means...
You don't have any preconceptions.
There's going to be a twist.
Yeah.
You know?
Both good movies.
So I think I'm just going to try and not, know when something is by him.
So you like The Visit? You liked The Visit as well, though, huh?
Well, yeah, it's an interesting movie.
Yeah.
Wasn't The Village not well regarded? I never saw it. So.
It's been reclaimed.
Yeah.
So originally it got very mixed reviews, but ever since it died down because people were pissed about the twist in that movie.
The twist is not good.
So it's one of those where the first time you watch it, it really depends on the person. I think for me, I won't reveal anything just in case you want to see it.
I haven't seen it, so I don't want anything revealed.
So the twist the first time I saw it, I was disappointed because I wanted a certain direction for it to take, whatever. But upon rewatching it and reflecting on it, knowing what happens, I think it's actually a really good movie.
Yeah, I like it too.
And not looking too far ahead, but I hear a similar thing may happen to another movie in this grouping.
Bro, you can't say that.
And I know nothing about it, but I think there's similar sentiments where over time it might soften.
Oh, we'll see. Nice try, David.
Nice
try. I'll rewatch it. I'll
keep
have
an open
fresh
mind,
eyes.
Reese.
I will. I did the first time I watched it, but let's move on to critics for Split. On Rotten Tomatoes, this movie has a 78% with an audience score of 79%. I mean, it's a thriller horror movie. You're always going to get detractors there. Metacritic has a 62, tied with Unbreakable for Metacritic score, and an audience score of 7.0, and a IMDb score, which is completely audience-based, of 7.3, which is also tied with Unbreakable. So this one is very much like people are like, we like Split as much as Unbreakable.
If we take AJ's score, we also have a Split score.
Yeah, exactly. 1-to-1. I'm personally more of the Unbreakable crowd, but I do really like Split. And there's other people who didn't like Unbreakable as much who loved Split. So, but I like both.
I actually think I gave both of them the same score.
You gave both 9.5s? No, I think you gave Unbreakable a 9.
Okay, if I did, it's very close though.
So you outscored.
Originally though, I did change it. I had a 9 for Split, so I started in the same place.
Box office. This movie released on January 20th in 2016. Also playing at the time was the far superior film XXX, The Return of Xander Cage.
Bro. Far superior.
I was going to say, speak for yourself, man.
Yeah.
Hidden Figures, Sing, and La La Land. So a lot of musical stuff
this
going
was
on.
the
La
same
La
year?
Land.
Yeah.
La La Land is really good.
Well, La La Land was actually still coasting off of like it did really good. It played prior to the New Year's and then got all that Oscars buzz and continued to play throughout the winter.
So really,
So I thought La La Land, when I saw it, it was only playing in like select theaters type, that kind of thing.
Yeah, good movie. The movie was budgeted at only $9 million.
Whoa.
Very small budget.
Is this
for
one of those
movie.
Shyamalan things where he couldn't get studio help? So
He
he's like,
self-funded this movie.
Man.
Yep, put it together. He got in touch with Blumhouse. Blumhouse, not notorious. They're well known for making really low-budget movies, and just so they can make a profit on no matter
Good low budget,
what
right?
they do. Yeah,
Was Sinister low budget?
yeah. That was also. I think that was Blumhouse as well.
Yeah, it was.
Yeah, Insidious, I think, was the Paranormal Activity. No, not those. Sorry. I'm getting them mixed up.
Those
but
were cheap.
Yeah.
I think it might have been, actually. I'll have to check. Sorry, I will not edit this, but I will check. Just to know. I will. When you're listening to this, just know that I researched and now I know
The truth.
The truth. Yeah.
What if Insidious was below budget?
Insidious was like $5 million budget. Yeah.
Gosh, man.
What are you talking about? You're not sure.
Oh, no, in terms of what were Blumhouse movies or not. Like, I'm pretty sure Insidious was. I'm not sure about Paranormal Activity.
I know for sure Sinister was, because I always remember the Blumhouse, like,
yeah, and James Wan
icon at
worked
the
with
beginning.
Blumhouse for
Yeah.
a lot of the time. So, yeah, but $9 million budget. A fun fact about this is Split's production budget was 88% smaller than the budget of its predecessor, Unbreakable, which was $75 million in the year of 2000.
Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt, but I have all of Blumhouse's films.
Do we need to know all of Blumhouse's films?
But I think
Paranormal Activity is Blumhouse.
Paranormal Activity, Insidious, The Purge, Split, Get Out, Happy Death Day, Halloween, Us, The Invisible Men, Freaky, and The Black Phone. So
all
there you
those.
go.
Yeah, pretty crazy.
All good movies too.
But I was amazed that this movie was only $9 million. Like, I know I know that a filmmaker can make a movie like this with a low budget, but it's M. Night Shyamalan. The movie looks really good for its budget. It's got a couple of pretty well-known stars. Okay, Anya Taylor-Joy wasn't big at the time, but she was
up
rising.
and coming. Yeah.
Yeah. So when you look back at it, you're like, oh, wow, what a cast, you know? But I'm still amazed that it was only $9 million. But that makes sense because it was self-funded. Because normally you'd pay M. Night Shyamalan $5 million to be the director of your movie, but in this case, he's paying his money.
It's hard to decide what the end's going to be because it's a big name director with a big name actor in it.
So I think it would be fair for me to give you Unbreakable's numbers for this.
All right.
Okay.
So back in the year 2000, Unbreakable made $248 million worldwide.
That's pretty good.
Off of a $75 million budget.
That's pretty good.
It's good, but it was viewed as a slight disappointment compared
Yeah.
to The Sixth Sense.
It didn't have as much staying power as
Yeah.
that did.
So this movie, again, to remind y'all, budgeted at $9 million. Let's start with you, David. What do you think Split did worldwide?
My series, I have to go first.
Yep.
I mean,
I've let you go last before on your series.
I
so.
know. 150 million.
150? Noah?
So that's what you're going with, huh?
So that's your
Noah?
game.
I'm gonna say because
It's a tough one.
This ended up getting a sequel.
Look, man, that means it had to get at least 36 million, which is not that crazy.
Well, I think if it got 36 million, even though that would be
You mean
a
28?
profit.
That'd be 3 times 9.
Okay,
sorry, I went up.
even though that'd be a profit, I don't think they would view that as a wise decision to make a movie off
like
of that.
not enough to really garner
yeah.
much. Yeah.
So I'm gonna say 151.
151, so slightly above David.
I'm okay with that.
AJ, how about you?
I have no idea, honestly, with that budget number. I'm going to say 100. I don't remember hearing a lot after this, but that's also just me being insulated from all this stuff. So I'm just going to say maybe not hearing a lot of hype after this movie personally might have tended it lower. I don't know.
Yeah. Irina?
I thought there was quite a bit of hype around this, and I do think there were enough people that were on the James McAvoy train. People still showing up for Shyamalan. I don't know. I think at this point, thrillers and horror films were kind of really picking up speed, and I'm gonna go high. I'm gonna go 250.
Wait, just 50?
250.
Ha.
Irina, you win.
No.
Yeah, the
Dang
movie
But how close?
did 278 million.
Nice!
Yeah.
Oh, I almost said
Nailed it.
280.
Wait,
That would have been really close. Yeah.
So more than
I'm the
triple its
closest.
Huh?
budget. A little bit.
Little more than triple.
I'm the closest. On that
I'm
one.
the closest.
I'm the closest.
I'm Spartacus.
I'm the closest.
Wait, what did you say the total was, Reese?
278 million.
Yeah, Irina's definitely.
You're second, though, Noah.
Off a $9 million budget.
Yeah. No, this movie
That's pretty good.
did insane business. Like, really good. Now, what I will say about Blumhouse is I would have to imagine their marketing costs are actually more than the movie's actual budget.
There were a lot of trailers.
I remember
for this,
seeing
yeah.
Split everywhere.
Yeah, but still, like, this movie had to have just, I don't know what their actual receipts are, like what the actual total is, but it had to do gangbusters for them. And yeah, Shyamalan already had ideas for a sequel. Clearly, he wanted this to, he already had it kind of mapped out that he wanted to complete with a movie that would combine the two characters. That's why he had this stinger at the end. This was basically him just like hoping on a prayer that this movie was big, and it was big. It was probably bigger than anyone expected it to be. It came out in January, which that's like kind of a dumping ground for horror movies, though it's lately become like it's kind of been reclaimed as a month to release actually good horror
Like
movies.
a post-Christmas, like, go to see something scary.
No, it used to be like this is where we put like the 8th Texas Chainsaw Massacre movie. Like now it's turned into, oh, you're going to actually get a good horror movie in January for whatever reason. And I think that might have started around when Split did, because this recent year we had the newest Scream movie come in January, and that was well reviewed. So it's kind of funny.
Horror's taking back January.
It used to be. What's funny is horror movies have always been successful in January in this dumping grounds month, but now the horror movies are actually good. Which that's the big change. They used to be just crappy horror movies that would have a really oddly high opening that was good, and then they just fall off a cliff. the next weekend, now they have staying power. And
Yeah.
I do want to say that started with Split. So based off of this movie's box office, massive box office, obviously we got the green light on the next film, Glass, which would be the trilogy capper for this. David, give me the trilogy name again.
East Rail 177.
Thank you. The trilogy capper to East Rail 177. And I think it was actually already in production at this point. Or at least the script was done. I know that for sure. And the Bruce Willis was cast and all that. So not much to say on the franchise side of this. It was just a huge success. An unexpected sequel to... I think the biggest thing to say from a franchise standpoint is that no one knew Unbreakable was a franchise until the end of this movie. And then all of a sudden, we have ourselves a franchise. So that's the fun thing about this. And yeah, it spawned yet another sequel. And I would say we'll see how that goes.
And I will say for my series, this was kind of where I formed the concept around. I think we were talking about Unbreakable. I was listening to something. And once I realized, like, oh, yeah, that's right. Split is a part of it. Yeah. I want to form a series. How do I form a series around this trilogy?
And you did it.
And I did.
Yeah.
It took a while.
I mean, I would say all your movies are not related to these Shyamalan movies at all in tone or how they...
No, but I found a through line.
You did. You did. I'll say that. So next week, no surprise, it's Glass, the final film in this trilogy. I've seen this movie, but I'm going to try to go in with an open mind and reappraise it.
I'm getting you drunk, buddy.
Yeah, we'll see. You're getting me drunk.
Let's go.
You're going to make sure
get you sauced up.
So you're going to try to make my experience the best.
I'm going to buy you. I'm going to buy you some McDonald's and a warm glass of vodka.
Great.
A warm glass.
Maybe
just the vodka warm.
McDonald's with a warm glass of vodka.
That's not trashy.
Maybe we can watch this one together. AJ, you'd be open to that? Maybe we could do the whole Discord thing for this one.
Yeah.
Dude, I would love that. I haven't seen Glass either, so I'm excited.
Well, everyone knows that AJ's in Philadelphia right now, so it would make sense that we watch Glass with him.
I think I'm the only one who has seen Glass.
Oh.
Interesting.
All right.
Cool. All right, yep. Again, next week, Glass. Y'all have a good day, good evening, good night.
And
goodbye.
morning.
Etc.
Etc.
Are you trying to trick me, etc.?